Great question, Dave. Of course I'll be doing that soon. I'm not sure, I don't think it can. For me personally, I don't think this size of device is ever going to really challenge at the very top, but we will see. The key comparison is probably between it and the Nomad. And every time I do a video on one of these phone size e-readers, there's always several comments saying, oh, that would be great, but I would just buy it in a moment if it just had a good stylus with it. No, they don't force the toolbar to be on the top bottom while in portrait. You can move it wherever you are. So that's an update that's come recently. Mine will just live at the top, I'm sure. Other thing about the toolbar is that they don't have the option to have the extra pen for some reason. I don't see why I can't choose what I want up there, because I probably wouldn't ever have redo. And I don't need the undo because I can double tap to undo, of course. So yeah, it would be kind of nice to be able to choose what's in there, but I would like the second pen. I miss the second pen option there. You see, you can have two sort of save pens, and I would normally do like you've seen me have here, like a black for writing and then just one color in pencil for scribbling and colorizing things. That's what I would prefer to be able to have on the move as well. So maybe that can come in an update, would be cool. Lots of people, yeah, short attention span says always starts with handwritten notes, usually bullet lists. So I would say you'd get along well with the reMarkable. Yeah, and a bullet list, you know, there's nothing wrong with a bullet list for this. That's your ideas, and then maybe when you're sat back with a cup of coffee with the bigger guy on your lap or something, that would be cool. I think this is the polymer weave. This is the most basic one, I think. And I think the mosaic weave just has a sort of second color woven through it. This is a mosaic weave. So you can just probably see it, all right, the sort of second color there, look. And this is the sort of one tone cobalt blue job, this one. Lovely thing there. Haven't tried the PU, that's real leather actually, but I know what reMarkable leather ones are like. They're nice. Slack handwriting recognition is very good, but they only accept one page per share. Oh, that's not good enough. Okay, so we want, but it could be one long page, could it? Larkland? Yeah, you want more than one page though, that's for sure. No, the screen isn't as yellow as the first reMarkable Paper Pro. I did mention that just a little bit earlier, that the screen seems quite a bit whiter, and the contrast is good as well, and the black point is better. That's one really interesting thing. I don't know why that is particularly, but it's something I've definitely noticed. If we look at something which is very black, like the outline of the pen tool there. Now, can you see how it's now, because I opened it on this larger device, it scaled it back to the scale that it was. It's opened at the same place, but it does default, if neither of them were open, it defaults to whatever the scaling of the device the document was made on. So you notice one opened really large on here, defaults to whatever the scaling of the device was that it was made on. And that's how templates work as well. The templates default to whatever that page was made on. So that's an interesting point. So if you change the template, then the template that comes through will be scaled, and it's actually a different template. They look different. They look different depending on which device they were made on. Now, can you see the black outline of the pen? And it's much bluer here on the Paper Pro and much blacker here on the Move. So I don't know why that is particularly. I don't know if that's just bad luck with the original screen that I've got on this first Paper Pro. You can see it's yellower, and you can also see the black point is better on the new device. Cool. Yeah, so templates. So this page was made here on the Move. So when I change the template, which is in layers, here, I get all these different ones, and I get the reMarkable Methods ones, like let's try the 5 Ys, that's one I've seen. You see it comes under there, and you can possibly see, if I hide the layer, you'll be able to see. You see how it's scaled like so, it stops there. Now when that eventually comes through here, come out both, we'll sync in a moment, we should see that it takes the same template, the narrow template, you see that, of the Pro. Now if I'd made that page on the Pro, then the template I would get would be full width, and that would then be the same template on here. So the templates are, you know, they're device specific, but at least they've bothered. They haven't just said, oh, well, you know, they're the templates, they're the size they are. They have actually bothered to change their templates for the new screen size, and I think that's great. Yeah, it's a newer processor, interesting. Newer processor, is it Cortex A55, I think, but like fewer cores, which is very interesting, but it does seem to be working just fine. Apart from one thing I noticed yesterday was when I was opening larger EPUB, but when I opened the complete Shakespeare yesterday, which now is done really quick, it must sort of buffer it. It took ages to open the complete Shakespeare. And as I said, when I first opened this on the Move, it was totally scaled, just all wrong. You know, and this is a reflow EPUB, of course. It was totally scaled, all wrong. And then they had the update, and now, as you can see, it's scaled just fine. Here's another EPUB as well. Anyone read Germinal? What a great book that is. Again, scaled really, really well here. And the one thing I was testing out quite a lot on the members thing, and if you need that in 4K, was things like ringing, highlighting, using the anchoring and really trying to push it, really trying to break it basically, like trying to make it so that it didn't anchor in the right place when you, for example, rotate it. You see it hasn't reflowed, but now if I change the, where do I have it? Is it in text settings there? Margins, yeah, there we are. If I change the page margins to wide now and go save, it hasn't changed anything at all. Oh, there we go, now it has changed something. But yeah, it's just not done anything sensible there, has it? Fit width, you see now fitting width has gone over the side. So it does give you a warning that probably doing what I'm doing right now will cause it to be a bit silly. I don't know why that's the case. But as you saw when I opened it, it was fine and perfectly legible. So you just find a view that you like and stick to it, I suppose. But it's probably some work to do there, the reMarkable team, in terms of keeping things anchored right. And you can see my annotations are not anchored in the place I would expect them to be. And you can see they a total mess there as well. So I think they've still got some work to do. I back them to do this. I think they will do it. But you can see now I'm struggling to get it actually forced back into a view that I'm happy with. And I've reached the edge of the performance of that process. I am back in a view that I'm happy with and have my highlights gone back to where they are. I've just lost them. Oh, here's one. Look. Who knows where they've gone though. I don't remember which page they were on. Anybody read Germinal? Would you like to read some now? Anyway, I digress. Let's focus in on the thing. So you can see, I think that's quite a nice, that's going to be quite a nice experience of reading a novel actually. And you've got that better black point for better contrast, and you've got higher resolution, and I can tell you that text looks perfectly fine. It's not quite 300 ppi, but it isn't the 209 ppi of the Paper Pro either. So actually that could be quite nice. And you've got, let's not forget, a reading light, which will hardly look like it do anything under my lights in the studio, but it's there for nighttime reading. So it could be the case that you can put EPUBs on there and you can really enjoy getting to grips with those. I still can't work out why they haven't released the reMarkable 3 at this time. I just think, I understand that they want that device to have that 10-year lifespan. I hope that they're thinking of something special there. I hope they're going to bring that at a really good price point. One thing we know, if you watch my reviews, they are not going to be going back to a Wacom EMR pen. It will be this capacitive stylus with its issues. One of the issues being the handwriting just isn't quite as good. No matter how much they can talk about precision, it just isn't quite there. It's good, but it's not perfect. You know, I can look at my handwriting and I can see the points in a text where the wobble has affected it. It's not awful, but I can never get my handwriting to look as good on a reMarkable with this marker as I could before on the reMarkable 2, or as I can on the Super Note Nomad. So I just, there we are. It's not coming. That's not going to have an EMR pen. Let's hope it's super thin. But why don't they just put a black and white option in both of these shells is my other question. Why not call this the Pro? The Pro's the one with the color, and just give us a reMarkable paper tablet at this size. Try and make it thinner if possible. Just give us a really great black and white screen on there as well. And similarly with this, and maybe we'll get that this time next year. You never know. But hey, it's one of these kind of like, we can only dream, can't we, of these things? Give us everything we want every time, please. It would be really difficult to imagine a black and white device not at a much lower price point than this. And I've had a lot of comments about that price. And it's interesting, Khaled did a little preview video based off the rumors yesterday, which I thought was a really good video, well researched, it worked out. I mean, it's the worst kept secret that I've ever seen before, because everyone pretty much knew the exact form factor that it was going to be. Did you notice all the stuff on Reddit with the, people were inspecting the code of the website and finding these little Easter eggs that they dropped in there, which I think is cool. I think that's great. They're reMarkable doing that kind of fun thing as well there. But Khaled said, if it's going to be priced around $500, it would be a failure. And if it was priced around $400, it would be a success. And I think that's kind of it. But I also think that actually even $400 is a bit too much. Probably $350 kind of dollars is where I think most people are kind of expecting and hoping for this thing. But that's not going to be the case. And there was a really insightful comment. So this was the PowerPoint that I made. And you can see there it's come through as a PDF. And if I rotate it like this, actually, there we are. Now the PowerPoint is designed for a 16:9 screen, so it's actually quite readable there. Seth says, I know people are upset about the price, but two things are at work here. This is not a cheap device to make, custom hardware with the same performance as the Paper Pro, but smaller. So it has been a technical challenge there. And it's a niche project, so it won't be a volume seller. Okay, so the margins do need to be bigger. You can't do this if you can't hit that price point. You can't do the R&D. And it's impressive that reMarkable said, yeah, we believe in this. Let's do it. Whereas, okay, some people have said it's like a phone, and there's a comparison with the Boox Palma there as well. But actually, the Boox Palma is effectively phone hardware with an e-ink on top. And so that's a lot more straightforward thing to design, because the phone hardware is very much, and I've got the Big Me over here, like think of what a basic phone at this size with basic components in it can cost, as little as it could, you can get phones like that for like £100, can't you? So just putting an e-ink screen on top, it's not all they've done, Big Me or Boox with the Palma. I'm big fans of those devices, but that's one of the reasons why they can deliver a better price point, is because there isn't as much actual customization to be done. They had to solve a lot of problems. This is not the same form factor. This is a much wider thing. This is the same form factor as a journalist's notebook. It makes sense, guys. It makes sense. And a lot of people, another really insightful comment that actually there's always quite a lot of voices with negative things to say, but then there's the silent majority who are just like, yeah, okay, I want that thing, and they just go ahead and grab it. So there we go. And as I've said, if you use it a lot, dollars per hour or euros per hour, if you end up using it a lot, then suddenly price is less of an issue. And if it's just that actually the premium nature of it, the sort of extra materials, the extra thought that's gone into making it just the nice device that it is, if that makes you love it more and therefore you use it more, well, that's a good value rather than being expensive. Look, when I first was told about the price, I was like, okay, really? On the meeting, I kind of like, I didn't want to be rude and say it, but I did think that's a ridiculous price. However, this is what it is, and it is a custom job. It is very much a refined piece of hardware. And I go back to that. If you've already entered knowingly into an expensive system, and if you're happy with that and you like it, then it's worth it. That's the thing. If it's something you use all the time, then it's worth it. Cameron wants me to say more about the battery. Absolutely, I can say a bit about the battery already. So I did have to charge it. I was surprised that I had to charge it before today. So actually, I looked at them both. and they were much lower than what I was expecting them to be. And the reason for that, I think, is because I'm doing all this syncing across all the time. And I've been really investigating that kind of idea that I've been talking to you about, making notes on the small one and then working them up on the larger device. And so therefore the devices have been doing a lot of syncing between. So you see this idea, you get this like column of notes from the move, and then you kind of annotate around that. And I kind of like that a lot. And I've been looking a lot about that anchoring, and you can see it kind of, you lose some of your notes there when it scales up to the bigger one or when you rotate it. So it's not an absolutely perfect ecosystem yet. And I talked about, here we go, this kind of idea of making a flow chart and then adding on the side. So it has been doing a lot of syncing, and I think that's what's been sapping the battery so much. If I use it like I have been using, as a kind of go-between between the larger device and the smaller device, I am not going to get 2 weeks of battery life out of it. I think when you're not needing it to sync, hitting the airplane mode button will be useful, just to shut down the antenna and save yourself a bit of battery. Obviously running it without the front light would be useful as well. And your mileage will vary depending on how much you're annotating and how much you're just reading as well. So I reckon I'll end up with it running for about a week, as I will use it normally as my day-to-day planner, and then occasionally sort of syncing and pulling this out and working on the larger one. Anything that explicitly mentions the width, why they went for this train, well, let's not forget that they, like all other companies, can only use what e-ink will make for them. I think they must have an exclusive on Gallery 3 at these two sizes currently, and that's probably why. But I think e-ink themselves are probably governed, these are options, these are what we can do. And I do think that's an interesting thing. It isn't actually exactly the same width. They said it was exactly the same width, but I didn't ever measure it. But you can just see actually there when you look, actually the screen is narrower than the top of that. It's the same, the device is the same width. Yes, it is. But the screen itself is actually a bit narrower. So there we go. Does that help, Neil? Is that answering your question there? Time will tell, but it looks like an expensive curiosity. I don't mind that discussion there as well. But again, I'll go back to, you can be curious and you can try it out for free because of their return policy. I mean, why not? It's I think if you're sat there thinking to yourself, should I go for something like a Boox or a reMarkable or a Viwoods or a Supernote? I don't know the Supernote return policy, actually. I'm not sure on that one, but certainly reMarkable have 100 days. If you buy a Boox from Amazon, then no quibbles, 30-day return policy. Viwoods have 100-day return policy as well. So you could try these out, why not? You can do what I do, and you can sit them side by side and you can work them out. Be an evaluative person, and why not? Life is full of choices, as you say, Simon. Yeah, it's a bit too heavy to carry around, isn't it? It does feel a bit fragile, but it's probably not. You're absolutely right. Cool, yeah. But the Nomad, love the one you're with. Don't lust after this one, will you? Or try it and see, because you'll find a good price for selling your Nomad secondhand if you decide to do that as well. Yes, it fits in a back pocket, James. That was in my launch video as well, but don't sit on it. What happens to a project you create on it and look at it on the move? Well, so yeah, it automatically comes through just scaled into the middle. So let's find one of those then. Loads of projects I've created. If I just go back a few days, photo books to do, that will probably be all right. You can see immediately what happens is it scales it right down. So this is just scaled the whole thing down to that size. But then when I rotate the device, I've now got it pretty much, and now we know it's not exactly the same size, but it's pretty much the same size there. And you can see one thing reMarkable added a little while ago. See, that's just taken a few swipes to do what I wanted it to do there, hasn't it? Which is this kind of infinite length of pages. Now it kind of makes sense how that is. So same width, but the length, it doesn't matter. The length can be as long as you need it to be. So if you need to add to this, now I can add more lines. And when I write like this, I almost certainly am going to take it out like this. And they're the same size as the Pro. Just don't love my handwriting on it though. because of that wobble. Love the pen tools, but don't love the handwriting itself. And then that will come through obviously the same width as the Pro, and then, you know, you can carry on. So yeah, I think actually, I do think, and you can obviously read and refer to it like that. I do think that they get the kind of, the link between this device, these two devices, I think they've got it quite right. I think they've got it quite right indeed. The only one who used the gallery-free short attention span was, the only one who's been brave enough to do it was BigMe, but BigMe massively rushed it. They didn't get the evaluative input from Good eReader because they launched one side by side with Good eReader called the Galley, and it was just a mess of a device really, just couldn't handle the operating system. Gallery could not handle an Android operating system, so not a proper full one, and that's what they tried to do. I think it's an interesting thing here. I think it's been a really brave move from them. Again, they've called this one the Pro, a reMarkable Paper Pro move. So I think there's still space for them to bring something at a lower price point. And I'd love to see them make a kind of fans edition. I think they need a fans edition, really, a reMarkable FE, something like that, a kind of student device. Can you imagine this form factor, but like even thinner, all plastic, black and white screen? You know, think about how thin the latest foldables are, and imagine that as being your super lightweight. That would be your ideal Geno's notebook, I think. You know, it's something like 300 DPI, even doing again a 10.3, having that, launching something in the region of 300 quid, I think you could do really well. The backing plastic they've used for this, you could just make this shell out of this stuff. It's almost like a cardboardy texture, but it's obviously plastic. And try and do it cheap, try and do a student version, try and do one for young people or for people who are just like, no, I just don't want the Pro, don't need all those things there. So yeah, I think this is, you know, you can be that evaluative person. I saw just there someone saying, well, I might give it a try. Might as well just try it out. They've given you permission to do that, you know, with the 100-day return policy. I think they're saying, we think that you'll like it so much that you won't return it, you know, and there are some refurbs out there as well. Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think they should. And I think that it would be useful. Actually, I would talk about them as a brand. I don't think they need to stay this premium brand. I think they're now a big enough deal that they can have premium lines and FE lines. I don't know, you know, I'm not sure about it, but it's things like Samsung. I mean, the biggest selling iPhone is the iPhone SE, isn't it? The cheaper version of that, because it just enables people who kind of lust after these devices to get the iPhone experience, and they could give you a great reMarkable experience at that. And interesting there. Yeah, they have found themselves a nice little niche, and yeah, it's a good support device in this. And I think that's the way to think about it. And there's been some comments that maybe, okay, it's not large enough to do serious note taking. I don't think that's what you'd be carrying it for. You know, I've been, let's say, planning out my IFA plans here, getting my schedule all sorted, making my little lists of people that I want to visit, shows that I want to see, things like that as well. What I'm going to do in Berlin with the rest of my time. And, you know, it's kind of ideal for that. It's just the right size. It'd be ideal for just slipping it out of the bag. This would take up so much room that I wouldn't have space for all my cameras and things and my laptop for editing things. And, you know, so I think that it's, for the right size, for the right person, it's really quite cool. It's a place for jotting down ideas, developing them later. And that use case that I've talked about, do the handwriting recognition, and then get the great type folio and use that. I mean, actually, one thing I did want to do is just let's price up what this would cost, this ecosystem that I've kind of talked through here. How much would that whole thing actually cost? So let's just do that together. We're going to get ourselves the Paper Pro, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to get one premium marker and one marker plus. So it's only plus 40 on there, so I'll go with that. I'm going to get a book folio and a type folio. I'm going to get both. I don't know if I can get both in one thing. Probably add that. Okay. And I'm going to go for, yeah, I only get one choice there. Fine, so far I've got 769. They've given me a folio discount as well. 769 quid, that is. I don't know what that is in euros or dollars, my apologies. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to get myself an accessory as well. I'd get myself a book folio for the Paper Pro, there it is. So that would be, I'll get the cheaper one. No, I won't. I'll get a nice one. This is what I've got. I've got the brown leather one. So I'll get that. That's another 169 quid. And then lastly, let's get ourselves a new Move, because, you know, we've got the FOMO for this great content that's out there. See, 399 quid, that is correctly priced, by the way. It kind of annoys me when the pound amount is exactly the same as the dollar amount. So, you know, there we are. I think, yeah, okay, it is the same upgrade, just a plus £40 on both. So I'm just gonna get the normal marker with this now. And I'm gonna go for the simple polymer weave. They don't seem to have the blue on the British store, so that's a nuisance. So that's 439. So 770 plus 170 is, what's that? 800, 940 plus 440. So we're very close to £1,380 to get that entire bundle there. £1,380 to get what I sort of have here, the sort of setup that I'm discussing. I mean, that then feels a little bit ridiculous. I mean, think about how much Apple iPad you can get for that. You can get maybe get the 11-inch if you wanted a bit more portability in your life. You can get the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil for that kind of price. So yeah, it's, you know, I think that if you're already there, you've already committed to that kind of price. Wowzers, sure, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, the 150 euros for the leather. So, oh, the blue was under mosaic. Oh, so the blue is a mosaic rather than a simple one. Okay, cool. That's a proposition, isn't it, in terms of the price? So I think it's an extra piece of the puzzle, but that's definitely a price tag there, isn't it? But they have been working on this for a long time, I think, and the thinking that goes into it, you're kind of paying for their careful consideration of their ecosystem. And I can kind of imagine them having those discussions and really think about, right, if we do this, then how does that affect this? And if we change this about the, you know, I talked about the infinite length of pages didn't make sense to me before, but now I can see that it kind of does make sense, because working between different devices with different screen ratios, infinite pages makes a lot more sense than that. So yeah, I have tested the line wobble. It's not great news. It's not as bad as the Paper Pro actually, but it's, well, I don't know for sure. I think it probably isn't going to be as bad as the Paper Pro because it's got a higher pixel density, but I'll do that. I'll do some close-up stuff in a later one, but it happens. The Folio costs more than the iPad Pro 13 official case, 40% more expensive than Apple for a similar device. Smaller device is wild. Yeah, I mean, an iPad is a good deal. I'm not denying that. But they were really talking about, they've heard a lot from their consumers, their customers, that actually people who don't have the kind of luxury of a desk, and they want to take these to maybe client meetings, maybe they're having to drive to visit places, take some notes out in the field, and then go back to their desks after as well. So they seem to have done their research on this. And of course, the popularity of the phone-sized e-readers has probably shown them there's a market for this sort of size. And every time I do a video on one of these phone-sized e-readers, there's always several comments saying, oh, that would be great, but I would just buy it in a moment if it just had a good stylus with it. So I think they probably listened to that and thought, yeah, that's how reMarkable would approach a phone-sized e-reader. They would give it that great marker on it as well.